Welcome to Armor and Steel, your ultimate journey into the world of World War II tanks. From the smoke-filled battlefields of Europe to the innovation behind legendary armored machines, we explore the stories, the engineering, and the battlefield legends that shaped history. Gear up and dive into the world of steel, firepower, and strategy. In the heart of World War II, one tank struck fear into Allied forces with its deadly combination of firepower, armor, and mobility. The Panther Ausf, Germany's pinnacle of armored engineering, was more than just a machine. It was a symbol of tactical brilliance and mechanical ambition. Designed to dominate the battlefield, it quickly became one of the most feared and respected tanks of the war. Allied crews often whispered about the Panther threat, knowing that facing it head-on was a dangerous gamble. Even today, military historians debate whether the Panther was the best all-around tank of World War II. In this episode, we dive deep into its story, exploring its origins, technology, and battlefield impact. The Panther was born out of crisis. In 1941, German forces encountered the Soviet T-34 for the first time, and the shock was enormous. The T-34's sloped armor and mobility left German tanks like the Panzer III and IV struggling to compete. In response, the German High Command demanded a new medium tank, one that could match and surpass the T-34. Engineers at MAN took up the challenge, blending heavy firepower with innovative armor design. The result was the Panther, first tested in 1942 and later refined into the Ausf. G model in 1944. The Ausf G included thicker armor, redesigned side skirts, and improvements to the gun mantlet, making it even deadlier on the battlefield. The Panther Ausf G carried the powerful 75mm KWK 42L/70 gun, capable of piercing even the heaviest Allied armor at distances of over 1,500 meters. Its sloped frontal armor, 80mm thick, was designed to deflect shells rather than simply absorb them, a revolutionary concept at the time. Weighing over 44 tons, it was powered by the Maybach HL230P30V 12 petrol engine, producing 700 horsepower. This allowed the tank to reach 55 kilometers per hour on roads and 35 kilometers per hour across rough terrain, making it surprisingly agile for its size. The torsion bar suspension system provided stability, giving the Panther smoother handling than many of its rivals. Inside, a crew of 5, commander, gunner, loader, driver, and radio operator, worked together to unleash its full potential. The Panther was intended to be the backbone of German armor divisions, blending mobility with firepower. On the Eastern Front, it excelled at long-range engagements, ambushing Soviet armor before they could strike back. At Kursk in 1943, the Panther saw its first large-scale deployment. While many broke down mechanically, those that fought performed with lethal efficiency. On the Western Front, during the Normandy campaign, Panthers clashed with American Shermans and British Churchills, often destroying them before they came within firing range. Despite being classified as a medium tank, its firepower rivaled heavy tanks, earning it a reputation as one of the deadliest machines of World War II. Despite its fearsome reputation, the Panther was infamous for reliability issues, particularly in its early versions. Engines often overheated, and the complex suspension required constant maintenance. Yet crews who mastered the Panther described it as a dream to drive, praising its balance of speed and firepower. Many Panthers captured by the Allies were shipped to Britain and the US for testing, influencing post-war tank design. Even the Soviet Union studied captured Panthers, noting their advanced engineering. Another fascinating detail: Panther crews often customized their tanks with unique camouflage and nicknames, turning each machine into a personal battlefield icon. For all its strengths, the Panther had serious weaknesses that limited its battlefield dominance. Its complexity made it extremely expensive and time-consuming to produce compared to Allied tanks. Field maintenance was a nightmare. crews often struggled with spare parts that were scarce or unavailable. The tank's sheer weight placed constant strain on bridges and roads, sometimes preventing it from reaching the front lines at all. In muddy or icy conditions, its tracks could jam, leaving the tank immobile and vulnerable. Reliability issues were so severe that, during major offensives, more Panthers were sometimes lost to mechanical breakdowns than to enemy action. German logistics struggled to keep up, as the Panther required massive amounts of fuel that the Reich simply didn't have in the late war. Training new crews was also a challenge, since operating such an advanced vehicle demanded far more skill than simpler tanks like the T-34 or Sherman. These shortcomings meant that the Panther's battlefield presence was often less overwhelming than its reputation suggested. Allied tank crews respected and feared the Panther. American Sherman crews often joked that their best defense was to call in artillery or air support rather than face a Panther head-on. In fact, the Panther could destroy a Sherman at over twice the range the Sherman could respond. British tankers with Churchills and Cromwells faced similar disadvantages, often relying on numbers and maneuvering to outflank the German giant. The arrival of the Firefly, armed with a British 17-pounder gun, was a direct response to the Panther threat. On the Eastern Front, Soviet T-34 crews learned to avoid frontal assaults, instead using swarm tactics and coordinated strikes from multiple angles. Even heavy tanks like the KV-85 struggled against the Panther's gun at range. German tank aces became notorious for racking up dozens of kills in Panthers, further cementing its terrifying battlefield image. The psychological impact of the Panther was nearly as powerful as its armor and cannon. Between 1943 and 1945, Germany produced over 6,000 Panthers, making it one of the most widely built tanks of the war. The Ausf G was the final and most refined version, with about 3,000 units produced. Despite its high numbers, demand always exceeded supply, as the German army constantly requested more Panthers for both the Eastern and Western fronts. Production required advanced materials and skilled labor, stretching Germany's already strained wartime industry. Factories were frequent targets of Allied bombing raids, which disrupted production and slowed delivery. Each Panther cost far more to build than a Sherman or T-34, meaning Germany could never field enough of them to truly dominate. In contrast, the Allies relied on mass production, flooding battlefields with Shermans and T-34s that, while individually weaker, could overwhelm the Panthers by sheer numbers. This imbalance in production strategies highlighted a crucial difference in wartime philosophy. The Panther was a masterpiece, but one Germany could not afford in sufficient quantity. The Panther left a lasting legacy on post-war tank development. Its sloped armor design directly influenced the Soviet T-54, which became one of the most iconic Cold War tanks. The American M26 Pershing and later the M48 Patton incorporated lessons learned from facing the Panther. Even British tank designers studied capture models, recognizing the efficiency of its suspension and firepower layout. The Panther's balance of mobility, armor, and firepower became the blueprint for the modern main battle tank concept. Today, nearly every tank in existence, from the German Leopard to the American Abrams, can trace elements of their design back to the Panther. Its innovations set a standard that outlived the war and reshaped global armored warfare. While Germany lost the conflict, the engineering brilliance of the Panther endured for decades. In many ways, the Panther's legacy proved more powerful than the tank itself. One fascinating fact is that the Panther's gun was so precise it could hit targets at distances where most Allied crews didn't even attempt to fire. Some Panthers were captured intact and used by Soviet and Allied forces, who quickly recognized their advantages. The French army even used Panthers in their armored divisions after World War II, keeping them operational into the early 1950s. Another curiosity, despite its power, the Panther was often nicknamed the Diva by its crews because of how demanding it was to maintain. Many Panther tanks were lost not to enemy fire, but because they broke down and had to be abandoned. Camouflage was an art form. Some Panthers were painted in elaborate ambush patterns, making them nearly invisible in forests. One restored Panther today is fully operational and displayed in museums, attracting tank enthusiasts worldwide. For many, it represents the pinnacle of World War II armor design. Few machines inspire the same blend of awe and respect as the Panther. The Panther Ausf G was more than just steel and firepower. It was an engineering marvel, a battlefield terror, and a lasting influence on the history of warfare. Despite its flaws, it stood as one of the most advanced tanks of World War II, embodying both the brilliance and the desperation of German industry in the final years of the war. From the Eastern Front to the fields of Normandy, it carved its name into history. Even today, the shadow of the Panther looms large in the story of armored combat. This was not just a tank, it was a legend. And legends, as we know, never truly die.